My name is Claire. I once went to dinner with my boyfriend's wealthy parents, kept my head down, and let them believe I was small. They decided I wasn't worth much. 6 months later, they walked into my office asking for money. If you've ever been judged wrong by someone who needed you later, tell me what happened in the comments. I met Daniel Whitman's parents at a restaurant he said was family favorite, the kind of place where the menu never changes and everyone knows the owner's name. I chose a plain dress, flat shoes, no jewelry. Daniel noticed, but said nothing. Margaret Whitman noticed everything. Dinner started with small talk. Margaret controlled the pace, the questions, the pauses. She asked Daniel about work, then his father about a property deal, then looked at me as if remembering I was there. "So, Claire," she said, smiling lightly, "what do you really do?" "I work with numbers," I said. That was all. She nodded once, already done. "My son is very generous," she added, cutting her chicken. "He doesn't mind carrying someone." Daniel laughed, short and tight. His father cleared his throat and began talking about zoning laws and tax abatements. Plates moved, glasses refilled. No one corrected her. Margaret asked where I grew up, if my parents were still around, whether I planned to keep working later on. Each answer stayed brief. She listened the way people listen when they've decided. When dessert menus arrived, she waved them away for everyone. Halfway through, a server reached for the check. Margaret took it instead and slipped it into her bag, smiling like she'd saved everyone trouble. The server hesitated, then nodded. Something about that pause stuck with me. Later, in the kitchen near the restrooms, voices carried through the half-open door. "She brings no value," Margaret said, calm and certain. "This will end fast." Her husband murmured something about timing. My phone vibrated. A notification from the payment app popped up. Refund issued. Tip adjustment error. It was for a few dollars. The timing was perfect and useless. I washed my hands longer than needed and went back to the table. Margaret was discussing schools she thought were worth the price. Daniel watched his plate, pushing food into neat lines. The rest of the meal passed smoothly. Goodbyes were polite. Margaret hugged Daniel, touched my shoulder without looking at me, and reminded us to drive safely, slowly, carefully. A few days later, Daniel called while I was updating my calendar between meetings. His name appeared as another block of time, unplanned. "We should talk," he said. "We're talking," I replied. He said he needed to focus on his career. Too many expectations, bad timing. He said his parents meant well and worried about his future. "That makes sense," I said. He paused, maybe waiting for questions, maybe for a reaction. The calendar stayed open on my screen, tomorrow already filling up. The cursor blinked in the empty slot where dinner plans used to be, still blinking as his breathing stayed on the line. I adjusted the meeting length, dragged his name to the side, and watched the system snap the space closed, neat and automatic, while he waited for me to say something else, something emotional, something that never came. The cursor blinked as the call timer kept counting upward. Daniel stopped replying. Messages showed delivered and stayed that way. Friends we shared answered slower, then with softer language, then not at all. When I did see them, conversations slid away from me, polite and careful, as if I were a subject better avoided. Margaret filled the space quickly. Her version traveled faster than facts. I heard it through a mutual friend who meant to be kind and ended up being accurate. Apparently, I had been unclear about commitment. Apparently, I wanted flexibility without responsibility. Apparently, Daniel had tried. The story came wrapped in concern, the sort that nods while it judges. At work, the shift was quieter and sharper. A pitch connected to the Whitman family disappeared from the review queue between breakfast and lunch. No notice, no explanation, just absence. I asked our operations desk to check status. They sent a screenshot showing the file marked inactive. I forwarded it to Maya Alvarez with a single line. "Did we pull this?" She came by my desk instead of replying. Maya read screens the way some people read faces. She scrolled, paused, and tapped a date. This wasn't a data decision, she said. Someone flagged optics. Whose optics? Not compliance, she said. Not risk. We pulled the audit trail together. The note was vague by design, concern about optics. No author, no metric. It sat there like fog. The floor didn't turn on me. It didn't need to. Meetings kept their tone. People kept their distance. A partner asked whether everything was all right and accepted my answer without follow-up. Another suggested I take a day, said it gently, as if rest solved reputation. Maya leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. Don't fight this with feelings, she said. Save everything. What everything? Emails, calendars, changes, who asked what and when. She sent a shared folder link and named it with the date. Not my name, the date. I started dropping things in, meeting invites that moved, notes that softened, a call that ended early when another person joined. None of it was dramatic. Together, it formed a pattern that didn't explain itself. A colleague I trusted asked how Daniel was doing. The question carried a decision. I answered with facts and watched the subject change. Someone else offered advice about balance and timing, words that floated without landing. By midweek, the internal system updated the Whitman file again. The status line read, pending clarification. There was no owner assigned. The expected resolution date slid forward automatically by 30 days. The software was very patient. Maya laughed once, short. That's the most polite limbo I've ever seen. We kept working, other deals moved, numbers behaved. The world didn't pause for personal narratives. That steadiness helped. On Thursday afternoon, a calendar alert appeared with no context. Meeting request, external, time-sensitive. The subject line was neutral to the point of erasure. Request, meeting with fund representative. Participants listed Daniel's parents and a managing director from their side. The time fell 2 hours before the final deadline for their round. The location was our building. Maya looked at the screen over my shoulder. They're asking for a rep, she said. Not you. The room hummed with normal office sounds. I accepted the invite and blocked the time. The cursor hovered over the location field as if waiting to be told where power would sit. The confirmation chimed, crisp and indifferent, while the folder filled one more slot and the clock kept counting down. Another notification stacked beneath it, a reminder from compliance about disclosure training, mandatory, non-optional. I opened it, skimmed, closed it. The folder synced again. Maya pulled up a chair. She didn't ask permission. They'll try to make this small, she said, procedural, clean. And if it isn't? Then it becomes personal, she said, which is still procedural, just louder. An email came through from an address I didn't recognize. Polite greeting, flexible availability, a line about appreciating discretion. No signature block. The calendar offered 3 times and suggested the earliest. I selected the earliest. The system asked whether to notify attendees of the change. I clicked yes. A green check appeared and vanished. Across the floor, a partner laughed at something unrelated. Phones rang. Someone rolled a chair back. Normal kept happening. Maya stood and pointed at the shared folder. Keep adding, she said. Don't narrate. The shared folder grew heavier without getting larger. Maya dropped a new file into it late in the afternoon, labeled only with a date and Daniel's name. No comment, no explanation. She walked over and stood by my desk until I opened it. The email was old, sent the week before the dinner. Margaret to Daniel. Short, controlled. Don't say too much about Claire. Let her speak for herself. It's better that way. Nothing aggressive, nothing explicit. It read like advice. In context, it wasn't. Maya pointed at the timestamp. She planned the silence, she said. The memory of that table shifted. The pause before questions. The smile that came too quickly. The way Margaret finished her own conclusions without waiting. None of it had been spontaneous. The joke about generosity wasn't a slip. It was a test with a preferred outcome. The phone rang before either of us spoke again. A partner from another floor. Friendly tone, casual check-in. He asked how things were going and mentioned a call he'd received that morning. Daniel's mother reached out, he said, just to flag a concern, personal stability stuff, probably nothing. Probably nothing carried weight. He didn't accuse, he didn't explain, he didn't need to. After the call ended, Maya leaned against the desk. "That's the squeeze," she said. "Private concern, public consequence." The meeting request stayed on the calendar. No change to the participants list, no clarification on who would represent the fund. That ambiguity wasn't an accident either. I replied confirming attendance using the generic address we reserved for external correspondence. No signature, no title. The building handled the rest. Security emailed a checklist. Reception requested names for badges. I submitted the list provided by the Whitman office and left mine out. Compliance approved the meeting room and attached a standard non-disclosure agreement. Automatic, mandatory, boring. Margaret arrived 10 minutes early, exactly on time by her standards. Daniel's father followed, phone already in hand. Their managing director shook hands with reception and glanced around as if taking inventory. The receptionist smiled and slid the NDA across the counter. "Please sign," she said. "Standard." Margaret frowned. "This won't be necessary," she said. "We're just here to talk." "It's required," the receptionist said. "For everyone." Margaret sighed and picked up the pen. "So much paperwork," she said, already signing. "Unnecessary, really." The system printed badges while she complained. They clipped them on without reading the names. Mine wasn't there. From the hallway, the group talked about timing and numbers and how quickly things could move if everyone aligned. No one asked who they'd be meeting. They assumed. Maya stayed back. That was deliberate. This wasn't her lane. I walked past reception and nodded. The badge printer chirped as another label fed through. The receptionist glanced up. "Conference room B is ready," she said. Margaret didn't look at me. She didn't need to. Her attention stayed forward, confident and light. The managing director opened the door and gestured them in. The room was set the same way it always was. Water, pads, pens no one used, a screen waiting for input. Margaret took the seat closest to the head of the table. She placed her folder neatly in front of her and smiled at the empty chair opposite. "Shall we begin?" she said, to no one in particular. I closed the door behind us. Her eyes moved then. Not fast, not slow, just enough. There was a flicker, quickly corrected. "Oh," she said. "Hello." "Margaret," I said. Daniel's father shifted in his seat. The managing director glanced between us, recalibrating. Margaret's smile held, practiced, and thin. "This is unexpected," she said. "It's within policy," I said. "You asked to meet a fund representative." She nodded once. "Of course," she said. "We didn't realize." The managing director cleared his throat. "We're on a tight schedule," he said. "Happy to walk through the numbers." Margaret waved him off gently. "Yes," she said. "Plenty of time." Her fingers rested on the signed NDA, the ink still fresh. The badge on her jacket read her name in plain black letters. The room's display woke up and waited. I took the seat opposite her and opened the folder I'd brought, the same neutral color as everyone else's. No logo, no cues. The email arrived before the meeting notes were finalized. No greeting, no softening language, just a subject line that carried weight by itself. Formal notice of conflict of interest. Compliance forwarded it within minutes, flagged urgent. The complaint came from Margaret, submitted through her family's attorney. It cited a prior personal relationship, alleged influence over internal decisions, and requested immediate review. The attachment list was long enough to look serious. By noon, access changed. Project accounts I'd been working on for months locked without warning. Approval buttons grayed out. Dashboards refreshed and returned errors that hadn't existed that morning. An automated message followed, polite and precise, explaining that decision-making authority was temporarily restricted pending review. Temporary moved fast. A compliance officer asked for a meeting. Not confrontational, procedural. Another calendar block replaced the one I'd planned to use for client calls. Maya sat in, silent, hands folded, listening the way she always did when someone tried to sound neutral. The officer walked through the complaint line by line. Dates, context, risk language. Margaret's attorney had done this before. Every sentence left room to expand. "Do you acknowledge a prior personal connection?" the officer asked. "Yes," I said. "And did that connection include financial benefit?" "No." He nodded and scrolled. "We've been provided documentation suggesting otherwise." The document appeared on the screen, a scanned copy of the dinner receipt. Margaret's handwriting circled the total. A note beneath read, "Dinner covered, courtesy." No commentary, no accusation, just implication. "That's a restaurant bill," I said. "It's being presented as evidence of support," the officer said. "We'll need to assess." The absurdity sat there, fully dressed as something else. Outside the room, the office continued its rhythm. Phones rang. Someone laughed too loudly. A cart rolled past. Inside, the tone stayed even. Margaret's attorney called an hour later. Direct, calm. He referenced policy sections without reading them aloud. He mentioned reputational exposure. He asked about timelines. "This doesn't need to get complicated," he said, "but clarity matters." Maya took the call on speaker. "This already is complicated," she said, "and clarity cuts both ways." He smiled through the line. "Of course." By mid-afternoon, emails from partners slowed. Replies shortened. A meeting scheduled for next week was postponed without explanation. Someone suggested looping in legal just to be safe. Maya leaned against the file cabinet and spoke quietly. "She turns conversations into records," she said. "That's the pattern." Another email landed. Updated scope of review. Expanded authority for compliance. Request for device logs. Calendars, messages, everything framed as standard. The complaint wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was thorough. An attempt to respond directly stalled. Every draft came back with comments about tone. Stick to facts, avoid interpretation, say less. Each adjustment reduced space. By the end of the day, security sent a notice asking me to stop by the desk. No reason given, no urgency flagged. The badge scanner blinked red when I tried to exit my floor. "Must be a glitch," the guard said, reaching for the reader. He checked the screen, then looked up. "They've asked for the badge," he said. "Temporary." He held out his hand. The badge came loose with a small click. The sound carried more than it should have. Maya stood a few feet back, arms crossed, face unreadable. She didn't argue. She didn't try to fix it. "Call me when you get home," she said. The elevator ride down took the same amount of time as always. People stepped in and out, unaware. The lobby smelled like cleaner and coffee. The exit gate opened with a tap from someone else's badge. Outside, the phone buzzed again. Another update from compliance. Another document request. Another polite reminder about cooperation. The plan to confront Margaret directly collapsed without ceremony. Any move now became a data point. Any word could be reframed. The ground didn't crack. It just gave way, section by section, under weight that had been applied carefully. The badge sat in my palm, lighter than expected. The security desk logged the return with a timestamp and a reason code. The system thanked me for my cooperation. As the doors slid open behind me and the evening crowd flowed past, the phone vibrated again with a calendar alert I hadn't set, marking a new review meeting already placed on the schedule, waiting for confirmation. The suspension didn't come with an announcement. It arrived through absence. My name disappeared from approval chains. Documents routed around me. People kept their tone light and their eyes elsewhere, as if looking directly would force them to choose a side. A partner I'd worked with for years asked how I was holding up and nodded before I answered. Another sent a message that said, "Let me know if you need anything," then went silent. No one accused, no one defended. The doubt did enough work on its own. Access stayed limited. Signing authority remained locked. Compliance sent updates that explained nothing and promised timelines that moved. The building badge sat on my desk at home, face down, where it couldn't be accidentally picked up. Maya came over after work with takeout and her laptop. She didn't ask how I felt. She opened files. "Look at this," she said, sliding the screen across. It was an internal audit report from years back, buried under layers of archived folders. The Whitman family had been reviewed for a potential investment. The recommendation was a clear no. The reason was listed in a single word that covered a lot of ground: misrepresentation. The notes detailed inconsistencies in disclosures, pressure tactics, and a complaint filed immediately after the rejection. The language matched the tone of what I was dealing with now: professional, calm, thorough. "They've done this before," Maya said. "Different firm, same move." The pattern was suddenly obvious: dinner conversations, follow-up emails, legal framing. The shift from personal to procedural happened fast enough to look organic. Anyone who didn't know the order would miss it. Silence had felt like restraint at the table. It read as consent on paper. "That was the mistake," I said. Maya nodded. "They take the story if you don't tell it," she said. The problem wasn't Daniel or the breakup or even the complaint itself. It was control over how events were recorded. Margaret didn't need to win arguments. She needed to be first in the file. Continuing to explain wouldn't change that. Every response added material. Every defense expanded the scope. The system rewarded volume with suspicion. The choice narrowed: fight publicly and bleed slowly, or step away from the noise and place evidence where it actually mattered. The Ethics Committee had jurisdiction. So did the senior partners, who rarely weighed in unless the risk was real. They didn't care about dinner receipts. They cared about patterns. The cost came attached to that clarity. Going over compliance's head would burn bridges. Even if the review cleared, the label would linger. Future promotions would stall. Trust wouldn't fully reset. Maya didn't sugarcoat it. "They won't thank you," she said. "They'll remember that you forced the issue. And if I don't, then this becomes the version that sticks." The apartment was still. Emails waited unanswered. The clock on the stove read past 11. Outside, traffic moved without regard for anyone's reputation. Files lined up on the screen: email logs, calendar invites, the old audit report, notes Maya had flagged with dates and sources. Nothing emotional, nothing speculative, just records. The draft email stayed short: requesting time to present material relevant to ongoing review, attaching documentation for preliminary assessment, no adjectives, no defenses. Recipients included the Ethics Committee chair and 2 partners whose names carried weight. The subject line referenced policy and case number only. Maya watched without comment. "This is it," she said finally. "After this, it's out of your hands." The cursor hovered over send. Midnight passed. The date changed. I clicked once. The system confirmed delivery with a soft notification and filed a copy automatically. A calendar placeholder appeared seconds later, unscheduled, marked tentative. Maya closed her laptop. "Get some rest," she said. "Tomorrow's not going to be quiet." She left, taking the empty containers with her. The apartment returned to stillness. The phone stayed on the table, screen dark. A response came through minutes later: acknowledgement of receipt, review pending. No promises. The meeting placeholder blinked once, waiting to be set. I didn't open it. The screen dimmed on its own, and the clock kept moving forward, while the system processed what I'd handed over, quietly sorting facts into folders that no one at the dinner table had ever expected to exist. The reply from the Ethics Committee didn't answer questions. It changed the shape of them. 2 attachments arrived together, both labeled supplemental. One was a memo from legal. The other was correspondence pulled from an older matter, redacted but familiar in tone. The memo explained why part of my submission wouldn't be considered: procedural timing, scope limitations. Several emails I'd flagged were deemed contextual, not determinative. Clean language, final tone. Maya called as soon as it landed. "They're narrowing it," she said. "That's not neutral." Another file opened on my screen. This one wasn't from our firm. It came from a contact Maya trusted at a compliance consultancy. Same family name, different year, different fund. The story matched. Rejected investment, follow-up concern raised quietly. A named individual positioned as conflicted, risk redistributed upward. When the deal collapsed later, blame settled elsewhere. Margaret hadn't been trying to remove me. She'd been trying to place me. The dinner made sense then. Questions designed to pull statements, pauses long enough to invite clarification, silence that could be quoted later. Personal context framed as character evidence. Daniel hadn't been collateral. He'd been access. A message came through from a former colleague who had offered support earlier in the week. It was brief and apologetic. "I can't participate after all," she wrote. Advised not to get involved. An hour later, a document I'd referenced in my submission was flagged as incomplete. A disclaimer I hadn't authored appeared in its place, calling earlier interpretations out of context. The coordination was careful. Legal on one side, a financial partner on the other. Margaret in the center, calm and consistent. The ethics chair scheduled a call. Short notice, agenda attached, no room for additions. "We'll need to move quickly," he said when the line opened, given the exposure. Exposure meant pressure. Pressure meant speed. "Your materials raise questions," he said, "but we have to consider fairness." Fairness meant symmetry. Two sides presented as equal, one documented, one implied. The call ended without resolution. A follow-up email confirmed a revised hearing date, earlier than planned. Less time wasn't an accident. Maya reviewed the notice and shook her head. "They want this contained," she said, "fast enough that no one looks sideways." The board calendar filled itself. The committee members were listed by last name only. No observers allowed. The scale of it settled in quietly. This wasn't about me or Margaret or Daniel. It was about insulating a deal from ethical risk by assigning it a face. Mine. The realization didn't come with panic. It came with alignment. Every move made sense once the objective was clear. Another message arrived, this one from legal, reminding me of confidentiality obligations during review. The language was firm, the timing precise. A document I'd expected to carry weight was now sidelined. A witness I'd counted on withdrew. The record shifted just enough to tilt. Maya closed her laptop. "They're good at this," she said, "and they're used to winning." The notice for the hearing updated again while we sat there. The start time moved forward. The location changed. The system sent an automated apology for the inconvenience. I added the update to the folder and watched the sync complete. The pieces were all visible now, even if they weren't all usable. A calendar reminder chimed. 30 minutes to prepare. No prep materials attached. The board wanted efficiency. Margaret wanted cover. The firm wanted quiet. I stood and gathered what remained. The room didn't feel smaller. The window didn't change. The phone vibrated once more with a final confirmation. Hearing rescheduled. Attendance mandatory. Materials locked. The hearing room wasn't large, just efficient. Long table, neutral walls, water already poured. The fund partners sat together, laptops open, expressions set to professional concern. An independent legal advisor joined by screen, nameplate visible, microphone muted. Margaret arrived with her attorney, posture relaxed, folder aligned with the table edge, like she belonged there. Everyone waited for the chair to begin. When the floor was given, materials appeared on the shared display without commentary. Email logs first. Dates, times, sender and recipient lines intact. No highlights, no interpretation, just sequence. "These are communications related to the complaint," I said. Margaret leaned back slightly. "Context matters," she said. "You're showing fragments." Her attorney nodded. "This looks selective." The next file loaded. Calendar timelines. Meeting requests that moved. Calls scheduled immediately after private conversations. The pattern didn't announce itself. It accumulated. Margaret smiled, patient. "This is interpretation," she said. "Correlation isn't causation." The legal advisor adjusted his glasses on screen. "Please continue," he said. The third document opened, a comparative report Maya had helped assemble. Different years, different firms, same steps. Rejection, concern raised, named individual framed as conflicted, complaint filed, pressure applied. Margaret's attorney shifted. "These matters are unrelated," he said. "Each situation stands on its own." A pause followed, long enough for someone to object. No one did. The next item queued automatically. Audio file. Short. Dated. Sourced. Margaret's voice filled the room, calm and unhurried. "Keep it personal," she said. "It works faster." Silence followed the clip. No one rushed to fill it. Her attorney spoke first. "This recording was obtained legally," the legal advisor said, "and admitted." Margaret straightened. "That call is being taken out of context," she said. "I was referring to relationship management." The system processed the file and displayed a status line beneath it. "Recording archived successfully." Someone at the table exhaled without meaning to. Questions shifted, not about me, about process, about prior complaints, about how often personal context entered formal filings. Margaret answered smoothly at first, then more carefully. Her attorney leaned in. The partners exchanged looks that didn't include her. A partner cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, "have you previously raised similar concerns following investment denials?" Margaret's smile tightened. "I advocate for transparency," she said. Another partner followed. "Do you believe personal relationships should factor into ethical risk assessments?" She paused. "They can," she said, "when relevant." The legal advisor spoke again. "The pattern presented suggests strategic use of complaints to redistribute accountability," he said. "That raises its own concerns." Margaret's attorney requested a recess. The chair declined. The room settled into something colder, not hostile, decisive. The decision came without ceremony. "The complaint is dismissed," the chair said, "effective immediately." Margaret inhaled. "Additionally," he continued, "the Whitman file will be referred for independent review." Her attorney started to speak. The chair held up a hand. "Please coordinate with compliance." Security appeared at the door, unobtrusive, a standard presence when meetings ran long. The chair nodded toward them. "We're finished here." Margaret stood slowly. She gathered her folder, aligning papers that no longer mattered. Her attorney whispered something she didn't respond to. As she moved toward the door, the badge clipped to her jacket caught the light. The security guard opened the door and gestured politely. "This way, please." She hesitated for half a second, then walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft sound, not dramatic, final enough. The screen cleared. Files minimized themselves. The system logged the session and time-stamped the outcome. The chair looked toward me. "You'll receive formal notice," he said. "Your access will be restored pending review closure." No congratulations, no apology. People packed up, chairs slid back, the legal advisor disconnected. I gathered my folder last. The receipt copy sat on top, unchanged since the night it was created. As the room emptied, a new notification appeared at the edge of the screen, confirming archival and compliance routing, while the lights remained steady and the table stood ready for the next story someone would try to tell. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It moved through systems that pretended not to notice what they were doing. The Whitman proposal vanished from shortlists first, then from conversations. Invitations stopped. A conference panel Daniel's father had been scheduled to join quietly updated its roster. No announcement followed. People in the industry didn't ask questions out loud. They just adjusted calendars. Daniel called once. The number came through without a name attached, just digits. I didn't answer. A voicemail followed anyway, careful and indirect. "I've been advised not to speak directly," he said. "Everything's going through counsel now." That part was true. His role at the family company had been restructured, which meant removed without ceremony. He still worked there, technically, but every decision passed through someone else's inbox. The confidence he used to carry never appeared again, not in messages, not through intermediaries. Margaret didn't call. Her attorney did. The emails were efficient. Requests for clarification, questions about process, no personal language. When replies came back from our side, they matched the tone exactly and answered only what was asked. The exchange ended on its own. Maya and I met for coffee near the office one afternoon. She didn't bring her laptop this time. "So," she said, "do you feel better?" "No," I said. "I feel finished." She nodded. "That's cleaner." Forgiveness came up once, the way people raise it when they think it's expected. "I don't hate her," I said. "I just don't sit at those tables anymore." Maya smiled at that and didn't argue. Restoration followed procedure. Access returned, authority unlocked. A short note from compliance confirmed closure. No apology, no explanation, just confirmation that the review had concluded and no further action was required. The badge worked again. The scanner beeped green. The sound meant less than it used to. A week later, I prepared a small envelope at home. Plain, no return address. Inside was a copy of the dinner receipt, the same one Margaret had circled and submitted as evidence months earlier. Across the top, a red stamp read, "Paid, late fee applied." No note, no explanation, just the document and the date. I scanned it and attached the file to an email addressed to the firm Margaret's attorney used. The subject line contained the case number and nothing else. The system responded within seconds. Document delivered successfully. That was it. A year passed without announcements. Careers rerouted. Reputations adjusted their posture. The Whitman name still appeared, but with qualifiers. People paused before engaging. That hesitation carried its own meaning. The gala invitation came from a nonprofit the firm supported, standard event, no connection to anything that had happened. Attendance was optional. I went anyway. The room was busy without being loud. Names printed neatly on place cards, pens aligned beside pledge sheets. Conversations stayed focused on outcomes and goals. At the check-in table, a volunteer handed over a clipboard. "Name?" she asked. I signed. The pen moved smoothly. The amount followed without discussion. She smiled and thanked me, then turned to the next person. Across the room, a familiar silhouette passed between groups. Margaret stood near the back, speaking to someone who nodded politely without committing. The distance held. No greeting followed, no acknowledgement. That was fine. I stepped away from the table and left the pen where it was. The clipboard stayed open, waiting for the next signature. As I moved toward the exit, the lights behind me stayed bright. Conversations continued. Plates clinked. Someone laughed. Outside, the phone vibrated once, with a calendar reminder for the next morning. A meeting. Routine. Necessary. The doors closed softly, and the sound didn't follow me.